Okay, let's talk grades and grading, and you want to pay super close attention to everything I say here because it's very important. The way that you're graded in this class is going to be very different than how you've been graded in all of your other classes, unless those classes were with me. It's a really unconventional grading system, but that is absolutely no reason to freak out because I think it really works in your favor. And I know this because at the end of every semester, I always give students an anonymous survey, and one of the questions I ask them is, should I go back to a more traditional, conventional grading system or keep this kooky one that we used? And in the last 10 years or so that I've been using this, I've had exactly 2 students say, you need to go to something more traditional and conventional. I don't like this. Literally everyone else says, keep this grading system. I really like it. And they really like it for 2 reasons. It's really easy to know where you are in the class at any given point in the semester. There's no guesswork. And it's really easy to determine what you need to do to wind up with the letter grade for the course that you want. I never get students asking me, what do I have to do to get an A in this course? Or what do I have to do to take this assignment and make it a higher grade? I just don't get that anymore, right? And it's because the grading system makes this really clear. Now, there's a couple of really important points, so take note of this. Remember this. None of your assignments are going to get letter grades. So you're not going to see an A- or a B+ on any of your assignments this semester. They're all going to be scored with percentages, okay? And the most important thing for you to keep in mind, because it screws people up when they forget this, is that you have 3 assignment categories that are going to receive percentage scores. You have your thought primers, you have your quizzes, and you have your philosophic inquiries. And these assignment categories do not interact with one another, okay? So, for example, maybe you take like a chem class and 40% of your grade is based on your exams and 50% is based on like lab projects or something, and then 10% is on participation. And you get to the end of the semester and you're like, ugh, I boffed it on my exams. I did not do well on my exams, but I rocked it on the lab projects. So I'm hoping that my stellar performance on the lab projects kind of makes up for my poor performance on the exams and kind of brings that up and kind of evens it out. That does not happen in this course. You have these 3 assignment categories, thought primers, quizzes, and inquiry, and they are all going to exist separately from one another. Okay? Now, I'm going to look at the percentage score that's the average of all of your work in each one of these categories, and I'm going to make a judgment about it. So I'm going to look at all your thought primer scores, and I'm going to average them all out, and there's going to be some percentage there. And I'm going to look at that, and I'm going to say, you know, you exceeded my expectations. I have to say, bravo for you. I have this sort of idea in my mind of what it looks like when a student takes this class and performs at a minimally satisfactory level, and you went beyond that in your thought primers, or you went beyond that in your quizzes or inquiries, or maybe all of them. You went above that. That would be great. On the other hand, maybe I look at your performance in one of these areas and I think, yeah, you know, you're not lighting the world on fire, but you did okay. You met my expectations. I don't have any complaints. If you're good with it, I'm good with it. Or maybe I look at your performance in one of those areas and I think, oh, wow, close, but not quite there. You nearly met my expectations, but not quite. Or maybe I look at it, and it's most common to see this when folks just don't turn stuff in. Like they don't turn in an inquiry, they miss a bunch of quizzes. And I look at your performance in that area, I'm like, oh boy, that doesn't come anywhere close to meeting my expectations. That does not meet expectations. All right, so let's take those 4 areas of judgment: meets or exceeds, meets, nearly meets, and does not meet expectations. And we'll just let each of those judgments be represented by one of these letters, E, M, N, or D. Okay? And you want to know, of course, well, what does it mean to exceed your expectations, Mr. Fancy? You're saying I have to meet your expectations. How the heck am I supposed to know what your expectations are? Well, I'll tell you what they are. If I look at your thought primers at the end of the semester and the total, the average for all of your work in thought primers is 80%, you have exceeded my expectations. If I look at that percentage of your thought primers at the end of the semester and it's somewhere between 70 and 79%, you have met my expectations. And if it's between 65 and 69, you've nearly met my expectations. And if it's below 65, you didn't meet my expectations. And then what you're going to see is the same is true for your quizzes, and the same is true for your philosophic inquiries. Okay? So each of these 3 areas is going to receive one of these 4 letters based on the average percentage for that area at the end of the semester. All right? So I can't, of course, assign you a letter grade of E or M or N on your transcript. So we got to figure out a way to convert these E, M, N's, and D's somehow to an A minus, B, that kind of stuff. All right. So remember, here's our criteria for earning E, M, N's, and D's. Okay. At the end of the semester, I'm just going to assign your thought primers one of these letters, your quizzes one of these letters, and your inquiries one of these letters. And then I'm just going to look to see what the combination is. And you can see here, you get all E's, you got an A. You get all E's and one M, you get an A minus. That's pretty good, actually. You'd get 2 M's. You meet my expectations in 2 areas, and you really excel in another, that gets you a B. And as long as you meet my expectations in all of the areas, you'll wind up with a C. All right, so let's say it's the end of the semester, and these are your percentage averages for each of these 3 areas of performance. What would be the letter grade that I would put on your transcript? Did you say A minus? Oh, you're so smart. You're going to do really well in this course. Yeah, because you've got 2 E's right here, and then an M. And 2 E's and an M is an A minus, so rock on. Now let's say we get to the end of the semester. Again, here's our letter criteria, and here's your performance. You rocked it on thought primers. You got a 96 on your thought primers. Whoops. And you did pretty good on your quizzes. You got an 82, okay? But you kind of dropped the ball on your inquiries. Your inquiries, you only wound up at the 67%. So now what do you wind up with? You've got here an E, and an N. An N in any one area drops your course grade to a C as long as one of the other 2 areas is an E. Okay? In this case, even though you rocked it on thought primers and you did pretty well on quizzes, the fact that you dropped the ball on those inquiries is going to cause your grade to drop to a C because you've actually got 2 other areas that are E's. All right, now look at these scenarios here. You've got pretty good performance on the thought primer and just not quite making it on the quizzes and inquiries. You're in that nearly meets expectation range. And then look down here at this example. Rocked it on thought primers, rocked it on quizzes, and dropped the ball on the inquiries. Okay, so then there's some other criteria that comes into play. If you have an N in 2 or more areas, okay, or an N in combination with 2 M's drops your course grade to a D. Okay, so that would mean here you've got 2 N's, right? And that's going to drop your course grade down to a D. And think about that. You did really well in your thought primers, but you didn't quite make the mark here. And that has the impact of dropping your course grade all the way down to a D. And then if you look down here, we're in kind of real trouble here because we've got a D. Okay, we've got a does not meet expectations on the inquiries, and a D in any one area drops your whole course grade down to a D. So think about that. Somebody would have rocked it out of the park here on thought primers and quizzes, but because they just booted it on the inquiries, they're going to wind up with a D in the course. And God forbid you wind up with a D in 2 areas, because then you're just going to wind up with an F. Okay, now all of this is to say, don't freak out. The vast majority of grades that I give are A's. Every once in a while, somebody gets A's, and then probably A minuses, and then probably more D's than B's or C's, because people check out. That's the way people screw up. They disengage, okay? So if you stay engaged and you stay on top of your thought primers and you make sure you do those quizzes and you just follow the work you have to do, it's going to be super organized and easy for you to do. You take it in chunks, you work it step by step, and you stay engaged and you make sure you do the work, you will get a good grade in this class. And you can always email me with any questions, any concerns, any clarifications. You want to take a dry run at something before you turn it in for a grade and have me give it a once-over and give you some feedback? Great, we can do that. We'll do anything we have to make sure that you complete this course successfully. Okay, you just have to do the work. I can't emphasize that enough. That is the one way that people mess up. It really is. I had a student in a class last semester. Man, this guy was bright. And his discussion board posts and everything he wrote was just so interesting. And he just completely ignored the quizzes. And it came time to give him a grade at the end of the semester, and it's like, wow, this really sucks that you disengaged from this part of the course, and now you're going to wind up with this grade that really doesn't reflect it reflects your performance, but it doesn't reflect your abilities. Okay, so you want to make sure that that doesn't happen to you by just staying on top of things and always looking to make sure that you've done exactly what you're being asked to do. Okay, so next up, believe it or not, as charming as I am, you might not like me. And I don't want you to take this course if you think you're going to struggle because I have an obnoxious personality. So in the next video, I'm going to tell you a little bit about where I'm coming from so that you can decide whether or not hanging out with me sounds like an experience you can tolerate.